Coming to you live from Pandora, it's the Hand Plus podcast, where each week I, Joe Fricky, and my co host Tristan Mayer break down this week in streaming. We kind of missed last week. Tristan and I had some stuff going on. We couldn't really quite align our schedules in any way that made sense to drop a show. So we just said, you know what? We're not going to do a show this week. There wasn't much to talk about this week or last week anyway, so we are like, it's not a big deal. Probably won't be much to talk about this week, but boy, were we wrong. Streaming news went crazy. A lot of streaming news. This is going to be a very news heavy episode. Massive ramifications in the world of streaming. Can't wait to talk about it. Tristan, how was your last 2 weeks in streaming?
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting episode, not because of much that I watched. I watched some stuff that'll be fun to talk about, but yeah, we took 1 week off, and it looks like the entire streaming world kind of imploded in on itself, Joe. So I feel like we got to stop taking weeks off because as soon as we stopped doing an episode, all of a sudden everyone's changing everything. So yeah, I knew HBO Max was going to be losing its title, this week. So that was something that was coming, but a lot of this stuff kind of came out of nowhere too. So it'll be a really exciting episode, kind of like a state of streaming kind of episode, even more than just what did you watch? It's sort of like all of a sudden everything has changed among these platforms. So it'll be a fun discussion and a lot of news. But I know you watched some stuff too, so that'll be good too.
Yeah, like I said, gonna be heavy news episode. A little bit of stuff we watched. I'm caught up on Bridgerton, mostly caught up on Queen Charlotte. Can't wait to give my quick thoughts on that. But let's kick it off with a streaming service we don't normally talk about, and that's Apple TV Plus. Tristan, you watched something called Silo. I don't even know what Silo is. Should I watch it? Should I avoid it? Is it a movie? Is it a show? What is it?
Silo is a new Apple TV show. It just premiered a few weeks ago. It's not nearing the end of its season. It's kind of like wrapping things up. It seems like it's only a couple episodes in, but it seems like one of those kind of short run shows. It's going to be like 8 episodes or something like that. It stars Rebecca Ferguson, and it follows this group of people who are living in kind of like this toxic future where their entire community lives inside of a giant silo, and you're kind of following the day to day of these people as you're figuring out like how does a society actually function inside of a silo. One thing, and also another thing of like how did this come about? Like what does the world come to that people are living like this, and what kind of like sci-fi things are happening? What kind of mystical things are happening? Kind of uncovering the mystery box of the world that this silo takes place in. And one episode by episode, kind of like figuring out more and more about this really strange and compelling world. So I really like this a lot. It has that kind of, like I said, the mystery box kind of feel where you're kind of every episode getting more and more clues about what the silo is, where they're at, who the characters are kind of aligning to, and the every episode kind of like gets bigger and bigger too. Even though you're stuck within the silo for the majority of it, the plot seems to just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm curious as it goes along, like, do they wrap this up with actual cool answers? Like, does this wrap things up completely by the end, or is this like going to be a one season of many seasons? So I'm really curious to see how it wraps up. But so far, these are really great questions and setups. I think it's a really compelling way of like how society functions in this different environment, and what similarities they have to our society, what's different. But there's also actual sci-fi action and mystery going around too. So I definitely recommend it if you have Apple TV Plus and you're like, what am I paying for? This is it. High production value. It looks great. I feel like everything Apple has produced has just looked cinematic level quality. Even like Ted Lasso is like a easy sitcom comedy, but it's shot really well and it's like acted really well. And Apple put some money into these great shows that nobody seems to be watching or knowing about at all. So I feel like they should be marketing this stuff more. Market this show because this is a great show that people should be watching. While there's not a lot to watch in some places.
Yeah, I definitely feel like with the writer strike and everything going on, this is going to be very much a time of people just finding and discovering shows they didn't know existed. This could be kind of a relaunch for the next Breaking Bad, a show that was on AMC and about to get canceled until people discovered it on Netflix. This could, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a show on the verge. If there's a show on the verge of cancellation that's well made, it's great. But especially we're coming into summer, especially when we start going into fall and there's really no new fall lineups. Like CBS announced that Big Brother is moving from summer to fall. Normally comes out late June. It's now coming out early August. So I mean, that's kind of hinting. Don't expect a lot of new shows this fall. Don't expect your
Hmm.
favorite shows to come back this fall. So I think a lot of people are going to be out looking for, hey, what's a show people have been talking about that I need to be watching? I could see a lot of people looking at shows like Ted Lasso. It's a show people talk about. It's really well made show, but I feel like it's one of those shows that people are like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, but it's not necessarily a top priority. Maybe that's just me speaking from my own experience, but Silent,
Yeah,
if you
that's
want.
definitely how I'm gonna be watching too, especially like
Yep.
for this show going forward. It might not always be like what's the next big release of the next big drop. It might be this thing that I finally watched from 2 years ago that I've heard was good, or this random show like Silo that I didn't hear anything about, but I was just looking for stuff to watch and I found this cool sci-fi show. I feel like that is what you might be getting from this podcast for like a few months here, depending on
Mm,
how this goes.
yeah, yeah. We got a thing in the chat. Spinner58 says that they're postponing watching the Jeopardy Masters finale to watch live. So, hey, we preempted Jeopardy. We can always hang our hats on that.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yep.
We gotta have some viewers.
Yeah, if you got any questions, any recommendations, post them in the chat. If you're watching live on Twitch, if you're not watching live, you can tweet at us, message us at the Hand Plus. That wraps up Apple TV and kicks us over to Hulu. And Hulu got a little bit of small news. Bob Iger said a couple weeks ago, essentially that it's basically it didn't really sound like he knew what was going to happen with Hulu. I thought for a while like okay, Disney Plus is going to be like Disney's more family friendly content and Hulu's going to be its more mature content, but now Disney Plus has been adding, R-rated movies. So what's going to happen with Hulu? And I feel like it's essentially they're both going to be the same app, but you can either pay for it and it's called Hulu or pay for it and it's called Disney Plus. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Hulu, it's really only the Hulu live option, and that's all the difference is. But more recent news, a lot of shows have been dropping off, a lot of movies. The Hulu original Rosalind getting pulled. The FX original that's also made with Hulu, Why the Last Man has gotten pulled. Um, Shows are dropping like flies, especially when they're Hulu original and you can't get them anywhere. It's going to be lost content thing that, unless you find some illegal torrent that somebody has saved on their computer, you're never going to be able to watch it again, or they're going to slowly roll it out. Maybe, an actor in that movie or an actor in that show gets popular again, they might throw it on there, but it's nothing that's going to stay on their content forever. I never really understood the reason, I guess, from pulling it, other than it takes up server space, but I don't know why. Like, if Disney Plus is going to start trying to save server space, why they're not, or same with Hulu, why these services aren't like, okay, let's just pull some of these bad movies from like 1955 that no one has ever clicked on.
I think this it's definitely not about server space as much as it's about licensing and about royalties. Like if for Disney Plus they pull stuff like Big Shot because they got to pay John Stamos royalties for every time they renew that contract. So if they pull it out now, they're saving on their annual cost because all of a sudden they don't got to pay John Stamos. They don't got to pay whoever has royalty to that show. So a lot of these are getting pulled. They're tied to big IPs or they're tied to big stars that I feel like are going to have big paychecks coming whenever the contract renews. So I think it's a much more about that than server
Okay.
space
I was
because yeah, the
always
server space
confused.
doesn't really matter very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, I was always confused, like, what's the deal and why is this getting pulled? But yeah, that makes sense, especially a movie like Rosalind, Caitlin Dever. I'm sure her agent negotiated her a nice contract considering she was kind of a rising star when that came out. So,
Yeah, I only picked a couple off of Hulu that we talked about, but when you go down the list, a lot of them are like, oh, this celebrity hosts this reality show about this thing, So that's what definitely makes it feel like it's about royalties because they don't want to pay those celebrities the royalties for these random shows that people must not be watching very much.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense,
But it does
Yeah.
suck, I mean, I know people who were, someone who worked on Why the Last Man. We both
Yeah.
do actually, and
Yeah.
it sucks that someone who worked on a show could potentially never see their work again. Like this was never released on physical media. Was it ever? It may not ever be able to be watched anywhere ever. And a lot of these shows like Willow is being pulled off Disney Plus. That's not where you're never going to be able to watch it again. If you're an actor who was on Willow as one of the young actors and you're trying to get a role and you say, oh, go watch me in Willow, they can't watch you in Willow. Your work is gone now, and that's kind of sad. All to save the mouse some dollars in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. It kind of, I know a lot of stuff got pulled from Viacom, and so like Adult Swim originals what is it? Space Ghost Coast to Coast got pulled from HBO Max, so Adult Swim just put the entire series for free on the Adult Swim website. So it'd be nice if they at least did something like that. Like, oh, Willow got pulled from Disney Plus, but we put it for free on Disney YouTube channel, so you can go on Disney's official YouTube channel and watch all of Willow for free.
Yeah, I can see some of this stuff ending up on places like, Pluto TV and Freebie, like that kind of thing, where it's not on these paid devices. Like, HBO Max pulled some stuff like Westworld, and now all of a sudden then it showed up on IMDb or on Freebie now. So I feel like they might pull a deal somewhere. Willow will pop up somewhere on something. That's a well produced show, and I feel like a recognized name. You wouldn't just toss it away, but
Yeah.
who knows?
The Roku channel, who knows?
Put it somewhere. It was a good show, and you guys should have watched more of it.
Yeah, I didn't. I think I started it and didn't finish it. All right, and over to Amazon. Surprisingly, not a lot of Amazon news and all this turmoil and craziness. However, we did get the Amazon original movie Air, directed by Ben Affleck, starring Ben Affleck, about Nike signing Michael Jordan to his shoe deal. Tristan, have you reviewed it on the channel before and not just watched it? It's hard for me to remember everything that
I'm
goes on.
honestly trying to remember as well, but I watched it on Prime. I'm not sure if I reviewed it last time we had an episode or not, but we can talk about it again. Did you watch it, Joe?
No, I didn't get around to it. I was too busy watching Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I did review it on the show or not, honestly, but yeah, it was honestly a really great, you know, legal dad drama. I reviewed Tetris a few weeks ago on here, and this feels like a much better version of almost the same thing. Where it's like a guys against the odds who want to secure the rights to this thing, and it's like, oh, are they going to do it? And you have all of these boardroom scenes where they're trying to like talk their way into these impossible deals, and they get right to that moment where you think it's not going to go through, and the music kind of picks up, and you think, oh, they're going to miss it, and then the guy will change his mind, and then you go, oh yeah, they changed the guy's mind, and there's some great performances here. I think Matt Damon and Ben Affleck both are great, and they're both are going to be talked about for Oscar conversations later on in the year. Viola Davis is smaller; she's in it, but a smaller role, and she's I could see being like a supporting actress runner potentially for this. But definitely one to watch for the performances, and not the story is exactly what you think it is. The guys, they want to get Michael Jordan a sign for the Air. Spoiler alert, he signs the thing. You kind of
What?
know,
Nike made a
the
shoe
beats.
around Michael Jordan? I had no idea. That's a spoiler.
But this fills it in with a lot of fun. Whether it is true to facts entirely, I don't necessarily think. Ben Affleck talked about how they improvised a lot of the scenes on set and the dialogue, but they capture the fun of this kind of a story and the underdog story of it. And yeah, it's one to watch. And I think Ben Affleck is definitely on the comeback in terms of his creative endeavors, and I can't wait to see what he does after this, because this seems to have won him back to the good graces of dads everywhere. I know so many dads who probably watched this in cold sweats and were thrilled by every second of it. And my dad loved it too. I called it the barbecue dad movie before he watched it, and he said, "Yeah, it was definitely a barbecue dad movie." But yeah, if you're a barbecue dad out there, check out Air. Uh, Definitely worth the sit through. And even if someone who like me, who I know Michael Jordan, but I don't like care. Like I know he's a good basketball player and famous and stuff, but I'm not like invested in the Bulls or basketball. And I was invested in this movie. I had a great time watching it, and I learned some stuff about my own city and the time when I was a young kid at this point. But my early youth, so it was a fun watch for sure.
All right, yeah, I didn't watch Air, but every couple weeks, every week or so, a friend of the show, Jordan Wright, will hit me with a text of like, "Hey, recommend a movie to me," and I did. I recommended Air to him last weekend, the weekend it came out, and this is his review. So somebody else other than Tristan or myself. Really good movie. 8.5 out of 10. Cast crushed it. Dialogue was excellent, and they made the '80s look so unbelievably cool. Maybe a little too feel good at one point, but the drama worked out too. Overall, really happy, well done movie. So, if you want just the average, I mean, not that Tristan and I aren't the average person, but if you want someone who doesn't host a podcast opinion, that's what they said. So, I feel like if you're gonna go into it, you're gonna enjoy it. It may not be your favorite movie of the year, but I doubt you'll think it sucks. And that's coming from someone who hasn't seen it.
I'm sure you'll love it, Joe. It'll be your favorite movie of the year, probably.
Probably, I like most of Ben Affleck's movies. I haven't seen Live by Night, but all of the ones I've seen are great, and it's really the only one I haven't seen of his. So, you ready to move on to Disney Plus?
Let's do it. What do we got for Disney Plus? We kind of touched on it, but what do we got?
A lot of news. I mean, this is mostly came out last week, but here we are. We didn't have a show last week, so we're talking about it this week. Loki season 2 is coming October 6th, delayed from the summer, maybe because of the writer strike. Plus Jonathan Majors. We also had some Jonathan Majors related news coming out. It was released that originally, his character Kang the Conqueror wasn't supposed to have such a big role in this phase, in the next phase of Marvel, but they loved his performance in Loki so much they essentially pivoted and made him the big bad. And now they're probably regretting that decision because of all of the allegations against him.
I
So,
feel like that story is more of a cover to my mind because that seems more of like a Hollywood daydream story of like, oh, the whole entirety of the Marvel Empire shifted because he was just that good, and in the show. I feel like they already had Kang, and now they're lining it up to shift away from Kang, and they want to kind of be like, well, we didn't really need Kang.
yeah.
I wonder because there was some conversation online that maybe they're going to be pivoting away from Kang and moving into some other character to kind of lead the multiverse saga rather than recasting Jonathan Majors into some other actor. And I
Mm,
wonder if maybe they're going to go that direction. But yeah, I that's something to find out in Loki season 2. Maybe by the end of Loki season 2, Kang is defeated by replaced by somebody else. Maybe we have a variant that shows up by the end of season 2, but we're gonna have to wait a little longer. It looks like.
yep. All right, and the series Echo, spinoff of the Hawkeye series, is coming out November 29th, with the whole series dropping at once, which is a little interesting. Disney Plus, I think, for every other show, has done a week to week release, and they're dropping the whole thing at once, which leads me to believe it probably sucks, and they just want the news in and out quickly. But they've also had other Disney Plus shows that weren't that great, and they didn't just dump them all at once, namely Book of Boba Fett. Um, so, do you think this is why? Do you think there's something else where like they were just kind of pinned by the release schedule of like the show had to come out after a certain Disney Plus project, movie, or TV show, and then but it also had to come out before something else, and they're like, you know what? The only release schedule that doesn't look like chaos is releasing the whole thing at once.
Yeah, I thought about maybe it's some MCU plot related thing. They had to come out before some other MCU thing, but I looked at the schedule and that doesn't really line up. This is after the release of the Marvels and way before the release of anything else, so it doesn't seem like it's going to run
Mm,
into any of the movies or any of the shows. To me, it feels like either one, a quality thing, like you mentioned. They're probably either way. I'm not expecting this to be the top tier of the Marvel shows. I think it'll be like a fine, solid little action adventure show, but I don't know. I just don't have my hopes for this. I enjoyed Hawkeye, but it wasn't the best either, and I don't really want to spin off of that. It wasn't necessarily Echo, but anything that was like a spin off of one of the weaker Disney Plus shows, I would be like, why do I want to watch this? You didn't convince me the first time. And Echo was a fine part of that show, but I didn't leave that show being like I want more of that character. And if anything, I felt a lot of tonal whiplash between the show I was watching and her scenes. So I don't have a lot of confidence in this show. But I think another option they could be going is just to test out the different drop model. I feel like we've criticized
mm,
Netflix for always going week to week, always going drop. The whole season at once, not going week to week ever, not even trying it with some of their bigger shows, and how it's stinking stuff like Stranger Things to being talked about for a weekend and not really after that. And I wonder if Disney Plus is just saying, "Hey, look, we have this show. It's not our best. It's all right, but let's test a one-time drop and see if that gets big resurgence. People are talking about it all weekend. Maybe that's something they want is rather than people kind of murmuring about it once a week here and there. They want everyone's talking about it all the time for one weekend. That might be a bigger hit for them.
yep. Yeah, that's also possible. Like, hey, let's dominate this weekend instead of not really dominating anything.
Yeah, and I do wonder though because we talked about the writer's strike and how people are desperate for content long term. It feels like a weird time to be like, let's just drop all of this show rather than drag it out while you got it.
And they may feel like Echo is such a small character and a character no one really knows. They appeared in the Hawkeye show, but it may feel more like if we drop it all at once, it'll feel more like an event. Where if we parse it out over time, is it gonna feel strong enough for people to watch?
Hmm.
But other Disney Plus news, we got the first four Indiana Jones films, plus the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, are coming to Disney Plus on May 31st, just in time for Dial of Destiny. Perfect timing. I feel like everyone knows the Indiana Jones movies. I don't really need to talk about them. However, I feel like enough people haven't really watched the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It's a show I've wanted to watch for a while, but it's basically always been on some random streaming service that no one has, and you have to pay a bunch of money for. But it's finally coming to Disney Plus. Uh, Sean Patrick Flannery, who people may know from Boondock Saints, plays young Indiana Jones. Um, some other actors people may know. You have Jason Fleming, uh, who's been in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He's in the show. Timothy Spall, sorry, who people may know as um, Wormtail from Harry Potter. We'll just go with Wormtail. I can't remember his character's actual
He's
name.
got Peter Pettigrew.
Peter Pettigrew, yeah, people may know. And then also Jeffrey Wright, who is in the recent Bond movies. He's also in the most recent Batman movie, playing
Westworld.
Commissioner Gordon. Yeah, he's in Westworld. He's the voice of the Watcher in Marvel's What If series.
Asteroid City coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and also
Just premiered at
yeah,
Cannes today.
yep. And finally, Pernilla August, who name may not ring a bell, but she is the actress that portrays Shmi Skywalker in the Star Wars prequels.
Oh, nice.
Also is in Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. So that's probably how or why she got cast as Shmi, because George Lucas knew her through the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Star Wars lore right there.
Yep. And then also Mandalorian season 4. No one really knows what's going on. Maybe it got delayed. Maybe it didn't. It sounded like it was all pre-written long ago in preparation for the writer's strike, but then the production schedule got delayed. So who knows if or when that's coming out. Maybe Jon Favreau was taking the script in a different direction, and then he saw what people liked and didn't like about season 3, and he's like, oh, this may be giving people more of what they didn't like in season 3, so I'm going to pivot a little bit. Who knows?
They can take as long as they want. I'm not itching for it. I was
Yeah.
not loving the and I liked season three. I don't think it wrapped up in any way that made me care about where they go next. So they can take 2 3 years. Just hope they come back with something that is really great and really lives up to the hype and will like pull people back into talking about this show like it's something exciting. Talk about an event. This didn't feel like an event at all in season three. So if they got to take 4 or 5 years, make it feel like an event when it comes back.
Yep. Yeah, and then a little bit more of what we talked about before of Disney removing content to cut streaming costs. Like we said, shows like Big Shot and other shows that maybe aren't as popular, but they have big names attached to it, so it's going to cost them money to renew these contracts. So these shows
Yeah, the
just
world according to Jeff Goldblum, a big loss. I really enjoyed that show a lot.
that was
And it's sad to not be able to watch that again.
that and the Mandalorian felt like the big marquee shows when Disney Plus launched a few years ago.
So Stargirl also was a launch title for Disney Plus. Both Stargirl and the sequel Stargirl Goes Hollywood, whatever it was, is deleted. Turner and Hooch, also an early launch title for Disney Plus. Cheaper by the dozen, Joe, with the best movie of last year, I
That
believe,
movie sucked
gone from
ass.
Disney Plus.
That movie was garbage. That movie ruined. That movie made Disney Plus less than what it needed to be.
Well, you don't gotta watch it anymore, Joe, because according to Disney Plus, it never existed. It's gone forever. What
That's
what movie?
that's
What Cheaper by the dozen? We didn't
there's
make one.
yeah the most recent Cheaper by the Dozen movie had Steve Martin. All right.
Classic.
Yep. Um, we have Avatar: The Way of Water is coming to Disney Plus June 7th. Great movie. I saw it with my future brother-in-law in theaters. I really liked it. I think it's better than the first Avatar. It's
I'm so
long.
hyped to watch it again.
Yeah, it's long, but you don't really feel the length.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. I can't wait to watch it again. It's coming out on 4K and Blu-ray on the 20th of June too. So if you want to hold off and get yourself that 4K copy for yourself, I'm probably gonna do. I mean, I'm gonna watch it on Disney Plus too, but I'm also gonna go buy myself a 4K because it was that good of a movie. So if you held off and you were like, oh, the first one that was all right, I don't really got the second one. Check it out. I like it way more than the second one, and I really thought it was just like a great spectacle of like what a action blockbuster could be and what like the future of the genre could look like. Because people look at Avatar now and they think, oh, it looks like every other sci-fi blockbuster, but it didn't when it came out. Nothing looked like that when it came out, and everything after that kind of copied Avatar, right? So I watched this, and I'm super excited for like what's the next decade look like of all the movies that are inspired by this one that come out and try and recapture the magic of this movie. So check it out, and it seems like everybody watched it according to the box office, but if you were one of the holdouts, it's on Disney Plus in a couple of days here.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't bring back the like launch of 3D because like when the first one came out, it seemed like every movie was 3D for the next 7 years, 7 8 years, and then I'm like, okay, it kind of died down a little bit, and I'm like, when this comes out, it's gonna be the same way, but you really don't see that. Like, I don't even know of any movies that really come out and are 3D anymore.
For me, I feel like the implication of this movie is the prime, like the prestige theaters, like the IMAXs and the Dolbys
mm,
and stuff like that. Because whenever I go see blockbuster release movies now, like The Flash, I'll go to buy tickets, and the Dolby and the IMAX are nearly full within like a few days of going on sale or whatever. But then you go to the regular theater and there's like four people, and I feel like stuff like John Wick 4 made tons of money off of IMAX and Dolby screens, and then a couple weeks later it dropped off by like 70% because it lost those screens. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a huge boost of like
yeah,
come to AMC because we have like five IMAX screens and four Dolbys instead
yeah,
of 18 little tiny theaters.
yeah. Yeah, the AMC near me is doing a massive remodel, and apparently they're like cutting back half their screens. So, um,
I think that's going to be the future for a lot of the theaters. Cut the number of screens and make the screens you have bigger and better so people feel like they're going for an experience, not to
yeah,
go see something that's a little bit bigger than the TV at home.
yep. And then the last bit of news here: Home Improvement, the Tim Allen '90s classic sitcom, coming to Disney Plus on
Yeah.
June 28th.
Ooh.
Hey, as a Michigan native, like that show was our life.
Look, we were close by, Northern Illinois. We were in the area, so yeah, we watched so much of this. I can't. This is like one of the most watched sitcoms of my life, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be. I feel like June 28th comes, and I'm gonna be watching Home Improvement on Disney Plus. Like honestly, this news gets me more excited than probably anything else we've talked about because this one has not been streaming anywhere for the long. Like probably every 6 or 7 months, I'll have a thought of Home Improvement, and I'll be like, "Where is this streaming?" And I'll look it up, and it ain't streaming anywhere. Maybe on Amazon, but you'd have to like buy or rent it. And now that it's on Disney Plus, I'm excited.
Yeah, I can't wait. I watched so much of this as a kid. Give me your Tim Allen sound, Joe. Give me that noise he makes in the show. You gotta give it to me.
I'm good. I'll pass today.
No, he
I
calls
can't.
himself a fan.
You
Calls
know,
himself a fan.
it is what it is. And the
Who?
yeah, sure, that. And then last bit here is Ant-Man 3 Quantumania recently got put on Disney Plus. I know you watched it. You're not a big fan. Me and my fiance put it on before he fell asleep, but I fell asleep like 10 minutes in, but what I saw didn't exactly impress me much. So,
Yeah, there's stuff I liked. There's scenes I liked, but definitely not the most exciting start to this era. And with all the drama on top of it, I feel like this is going to go down as one of the bigger flops and the bigger kind of like duds within the MCU. Hopefully, they can pick things up from here and make it better. But if this is a sign of what we're in for, especially with like the state of writers in Hollywood, I'm like, is this the quality of the scripts we are looking for? Because I hope not. But the writer of this movie was attached to write Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, but he got fired a couple of days ago. So there's some good news, I guess. No more of Jeff Loveless writing your Marvel movies. He's out. See, I was close. Look at that. I was like right on for that. Look
yeah.
at that.
I wish this show had sound bites. I would include that somewhere. I don't know where that would go, but we'd have more sound bites. Anyway, I know I derailed our Quantumania conversation, but
yeah, for season 2 we got sound bites.
Everything I've heard about that show or that movie is that it sucks. So I don't care. Fuck it.
Yeah, not a great one.
All right, Disney Plus is over. One thing I forgot to mention: Hulu season 2, the second half of How I Met Your Father just came out this last week. Clark Gregg appears, kind of in a character that he not normally doesn't play. But I feel like the show has definitely found its groove. It's similar to How I Met Your Mother, but it's slightly different. And I can definitely hear the wrapper or whatever that Tristan's messing with in his hands or something. It sounds like you had something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. If you're a How I Met Your Mother fan, check out How I Met Your Father. That's all I had to say. I forgot about that when we were in Hulu because I didn't write it down. And Disney Plus is over, and now we move to dropping
Paramount
HBO,
Plus. Oh,
just Max. HBO is no more. It's Max, just Max. A lot of content, I guess, but mixed reception. I know they basically have a new app now. If you have it on your phone, but if you go to try to watch anything on it, it really doesn't work. Why they couldn't just rename the app, I guess, is beyond me. Also, Avatar: Way of Water also dropping on HBO Max June 7th. So if you want to watch the movie and you don't have Disney Plus and you only have Max, uh, worry not because you can just watch it on Max. Yeah, let's go back to this just Max thing. It's
yeah, I
dumb.
gotta talk about the main
It's
thing, you
dumb.
know?
It's the main thing. It's dumb. It makes no sense. What is Max? No one knows. People knew what HBO Max was, but what is Max?
What I mean, you have so many brands, not just HBO, you own Warner Brothers. Like you couldn't think of anything interesting within either one of those names come up with, and I thought that was funny that the tagline on the initial ad and the initial posters was Max colon the place to watch HBO or something like
Yeah,
that.
it
And it's like,
was.
I feel like there could be a easier way to convey that information, but in terms of the actual interface of the app, I do feel like it's been a major downgrade compared to where HBO Max was at. This feels like like a beta app or something. You open it up and there's just no life or no style. It's like the most empty colors. There's no character. It really I'm not a fan of way it's looking. It feels like a downgraded Netflix. It has those randomly generated looking categories that are like literally LOL'd, and you go through it. It's like Scorsese or something, and it's like, did you LOL though in that? And I don't know what to think of this, Joe. It looks. The one thing I will say though is, if you're purely going by content, this is by a mile the best streaming platform out there right now. This has the best and the most movies, the best and the most TV shows. All so many of the all-time classic movies, all-time classic TV shows are all on here, and a lot of them are only on here. So, in terms of actual A to Z, what's on the apps, like this is by none the best and the most value for your money. Like it looks like a lot of money to be paying, like $20 a month or whatever, but Netflix is not that much cheaper at this point anymore. So I feel like to me, I'm at two of minds because I really do not like the way this app looks and the way it kind of throws things at you in this AI generated algorithm looking way that buries so much of the good and important films and movies they have, or films and TV shows they have on this app. But it's all there. I'm getting my money's worth if I know where to look, but it's not guiding you in the best directions. So I'm nervous about what the future of this extremely content looking app looks is. It very much looks like you are just opening up an app to consume something, and it gives you all of the stuff to consume. It has just nothing, not any personality or art to it, and I'm scared. I'm hoping this is just because it's like day one. It's like day 2 or 3 at this
No,
point, but not a fan of the way it is right now.
I'm about to go on a rant because I just opened Max for the first time.
You got to tell me what it put as your first thing to recommend
The
because
Tina Turner documentary.
oh,
Um,
okay, well, it's changed because of real life, but it was not that
But
yesterday.
here's what it's saying though. I literally opened this app, downloaded it, opened it, and I didn't have to sign in, which was peculiar. Why didn't I have to sign into an app I've never installed or downloaded before? Then it gave me the option to continue watching A Different World. How do I continue watching something I've never watched on your app? So literally, they literally just cloned the HBO Max app and renamed it instead of just renaming the app you already had. So now I have to download a new app for no reason whatsoever. It's dumb. It
The
makes
problem
no
too was
sense.
I don't know what you, but on my Android phone, day one, I opened up HBO Max to watch Barry on my off time, and oh, HBO Max is gone. You gotta download Max. Click this link. So I clicked the link. Maybe it's in a Play Store. This app's not available yet. Please wait. It's like, oh, So for like a whole day, I just did not have HBO on my phone, and I couldn't watch what I wanted to watch. But I wish they just cloned it though, because this app is worse than HBO. It's like HBO had those really organized hubs, for the DC and for Studio Ghibli and for Turner Classic Movies, and this is like a big super soaker of stuff, and you got to scroll like way, way, way down to get to what they call like brand spotlight, or the most like, you know, corporate way of saying it possible. Brand spotlight, I think is what it is called. And this has like DC on there, but it doesn't. Yeah, why not put that at the top? Why not make it look cool? Why not put, like a huge Batman logo you can click on that says DC? Make it look like something that's cool and engaging. When you launch HBO, when you launch Max, you want to feel like you're launching something cool and prestige, not, you know, your like digital library of stuff. That's my biggest critique. There's just not a lot of character to this, and not a lot of like meaningful organization to where things are.
Yeah, it's just bad. It I'm just perusing the app now and it's a horrible app. It's dumb. Don't use it. Or use it. I don't really care. It's a bad app and I don't understand any of the reason for anything that they've done. It's stupid.
Yeah, I don't know why they're floundering. They have, like I said, the best library of any of these apps by millions of miles, and yet they're like struggling to get that out to people, and it's frustrating because they have so much there, and if they could just get it to work correctly, it would be a great app, and I would have all the movies I ever wanted to watch. I wouldn't even need any other streaming platform, to be honest. Like if I could cancel all but one, I would probably be keeping HBO Max or keeping Max, but they gotta get their design together. This interface is not friendly.
It's not. I don't like it. I'm already done talking about this. We're not
Let's
talking
do it.
about Max
Where are we
anymore.
going?
And you watched the Tina Turner documentary.
I did not watch it today,
Uh,
but I watched it a while ago, and I wanted
okay.
to recommend it based off of today's news of her passing. This is definitely a great documentary to learn about her career. It's a very much by the numbers music documentary. You know exactly what you're gonna get. You're gonna get the typical beats of like here's the beginnings and here's some of the personal struggles, and then kind of like the rises and the falls of someone who dealt with so much. And Tina Turner dealt with so much. She's one of those true blue, like come and to the music industry and kind of like rising up to fame and huge stardom, and kind of like the downfalls that come with that. So I definitely recommend this documentary if you're looking to reminisce about the highs of her career, some of the unfortunate personal lows, but also just ultimately just to celebrate this woman and her career. This documentary feels like that, and I definitely am going to be watching this later tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, rest in peace, Tina Turner, an icon and a classic, of all time performer and singer. So check out this documentary if you want to get some perspective on why she was such a big and remembered talent today.
Yeah. Um, my fiance will probably be interested in that. I'll probably get her to watch it. We'll see how that goes. I always say, "Oh yeah, my fiance will watch it," and then I just forget to even tell her it exists. So it
I
is what
also
it
want
is.
to get hyped for the Barry and Succession dual feature. HBO is finaleing two of the best shows they've had in many, many, many years on the same night. I don't remember the order. I think it's Succession and then Barry, but it might be the other way around. I don't even actually remember which order they go. I'm excited to watch them on the app. But it's going to be great to watch how both of these shows end. And I feel like they're both building up to really great and compelling finales. I don't want to spoil any of these shows, but I feel like both of them have become these huge cultural phenomenons right at the end of their runs, almost like Breaking Bad, where Breaking Bad was this humble show that was getting some good ratings, but then within its last season or two, all of a sudden it popped off as this big thing. And I'm feeling the same energy for both of these shows. And people were talking about them early on. They were winning some awards here and there, but the fever pitch of hype I feel around this last season for both of these shows is really exciting, and I can't wait to log on to Twitter and see how people are reacting to both of these shows this weekend. And we don't talk about Marvelous Miss Maisel, but that show is also a streaming original that's finaleing this weekend. So a lot of big award darlings that have won a bunch of stuff and been huge successes for their platforms are wrapping things up this week.
All right. Yeah, I don't watch either show. I'm a horrible human, so it is
The
what it
Flash
is.
is also finaleing this week, marking
Oh yeah,
a,
I
a,
saw.
a large end of the CW.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the last of the CW DC shows, isn't it?
I think there might be a couple of spinoffs floating out there somewhere,
Who
but I
knows?
think it might be the last, and definitely the last of their big tentpoles. So a
Yeah.
shifting of the CW for sure, while DC's also
Oh yeah,
shifting
cause
itself.
yeah, cause I heard Superman and Lois was originally on HBO Max, and then it got moved to the CW, and now the rumor is that it's gonna move back to Max. That's what I've heard.
We'll see. Maybe it'll be a different name by then.
Who knows? Or maybe it'll just be HBO. Like they'll put it on HBO, but it won't be on Max at all. Um, Other HBO news: Conan O'Brien must go. Ordered to series. If you don't know what this is, Conan O'Brien has a podcast. Conan O'Brien needs a fan, where fans of his basically can call in, talk to him live, talk about their lives. You know, they have interesting, cool stories, and Conan, talks to them directly. Well, his show on Max, Conan O'Brien Must Go, is him going to his fans that have called in and essentially surprising them at their door and just being like, "Hey, what are you doing today? Because I'm going with you." Um, I saw the trailer. Trailer looks fun. I'm excited to watch it. I Back when I had a job where I could listen to podcasts while I work, I listened to his podcast. Um, it was really fun. I didn't really watch his late night show that much, but I'm definitely going to be watching this show.
Yeah, we're checking it out. It sounds like a fun premise for sure. See the reactions and stuff like that. And
Yeah, yeah. Conan O'Brien is very good at just being like off the cuff and just reacting to what's around him. So I think this is great vehicle for him. I feel like even someone who lives a boring, mundane life, where they're like, "Oh, what are you doing today?" "Oh, I was just gonna like go get coffee and buy groceries." I feel like he could still make that fun and entertaining.
yeah, he'll find a way to make it. I was gonna watch TV in my underwear all day funny because he'll just like find something to
Yeah,
comment about in their house or their
yeah,
living situation or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then a little bit of news: Penguin, the spin-off series of the recent Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman movie, has been delayed. I feel like this is writer strike related. Um,
Yeah, it's gonna be one of many shows. I'm sure that is. I mean, so many shows have been delayed at this point. It's almost like not news when a
yeah,
show gets delayed. But this is a big, highly anticipated show that was just starting production, and a lot of rumors swirling around who was in it and stuff like that. And now, I'd rather they delayed than kept going at least, because
yeah,
something like that I feel like needs to be tooled into something
yeah,
compelling, because that could easily become the most boring show of all time with bad writing.
yeah. All right, and over at Peacock, Five Nights at Freddy's trailer reveals an October 27th release date, simultaneous to theaters. Tristan, have you watched this trailer? Are
Yeah, I
you a
saw the
fan?
trailer actually in theaters before Fast and Furious 10. Future classic right there. But I'm wondering if Five Nights at Freddy's would be a future classic. It looked pretty interesting. Josh Hutcherson from the Hunger Games, who played out of the I think the main love interest, like the blonde guy from the Hunger Games,
He
whose
played
name I can't
PETA.
remember.
I haven't
Peeta.
even watched Hunger Games, and I knew that.
He's the main character in Five Nights at Freddy's. It follows the plot of the game. He's a security guard coming in to be an overnight at this Chuck E. Cheese kind of situation. If you saw the Nick Cage movie a few years ago, it was similar. It's the kind of that was
Yeah,
almost like a
Willy's
rip off of
Wonderland.
this. Yeah, Wally's Wonderland. It
Yeah,
was
that's what it
sort of
is.
like a play on this premise, but this one has him stuck in this place with all these like living creatures that are walking around. Are they robots? Are they aliens? Are they monsters? You gotta watch the movie to find out. But I'm wondering if they're gonna stick to the lore of these games because believe it or not, they do have like an extensive amount of lore and story and characters to them. But I'm hoping they kind of do their own thing with the idea of Five Nights at Freddy's because
Mm.
sure the lore is there, but I'm betting like 2% of the people who are gonna watch this movie even know what the lore exists. So who cares about the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's? Make it a good movie and hopefully it's good just in time for Halloween. I'm ready to watch it.
All right. Yeah, that wraps up Peacock. Over to Paramount Plus. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Is that already on Paramount Plus?
It is. It's
Oh,
believe it or
that's
not on
a
Paramount Plus.
very
Quick
quick turn.
turnaround.
Very quick turnaround. I wanted to watch that movie. I've never really played Dungeons and Dragons. I don't. I kind of have a rough idea of what it is, but the movie itself looked fun. It looked interesting. Is it good?
It's actually very good. It's a really fun action adventure. I feel like this genre of like the big stunt cast level people and like a sword and sandals kind of epic is almost like not around anymore. You get stuff like, you know, Exodus gods and kings and like these attempts to be that, but they're all like so self-serious that it doesn't really work. And I feel like what makes this work is that it has that perfect blend of serious stakes and serious circumstances and a serious world, but there's still that element of like fun, you know, because there is that layer of you don't really they don't really talk about it that much, but you get the idea that like this is a D&D campaign playing out, you know, and there's these moments here and there where there's meta jokes. Maybe a character will like not show up for a long time and then all of a sudden pop back up again because you wonder maybe the player had to like go to somewhere that session so he wasn't able to play for a little while or something like that, or like, and a lot of the spells and a lot of, you know, everything in that the characters and the creatures are all lore to Dungeons and Dragons, you know, so even the creatures and the spells they're casting, if you know the game, you're going to be like, oh, I know that spell, I know how it works, and they're going to follow the rules of how it works. And I feel like that's a lot of fun, but if you don't know any of that, you're still having a blast watching this Sword and Sandals adventure with like a really charismatic cast and really fun kind of like quips and things like that. So it feels like a really fun movie. I played Dungeons and Dragons for a while. Like I was on a campaign that lasted a year or so, so I knew some of the references and stuff like that, but I wasn't picking up the deep lore. And for me, I had a blast, and I feel like Joe, you would still like it even just as much as me because there's references and stuff, but it does not at all hinder on like you knowing Dungeons and Dragons at all, right? So I feel like it's definitely worth it. It's like, you know, you can watch Lego movie without
Mm,
knowing like Lego. You know, you
yeah.
got to know like all the Lego sets and all the Lego like references they're making. You're just liking it because it's a good movie, but it happens to have Legos, you know, and this feels the same way that we're using this IP that's recognizable and everything within it is recognizable to that IP. But if you don't know it, it's still great.
All right. Yeah, it definitely looks fun. I feel like everything I heard. It's not like, oh, if you're not a hardcore D&D person, you're not really gonna understand this movie. I feel like it's very kind of like general audience, but if you're a D&D person, then you're gonna get a lot more of the jokes and have a lot more understanding of what's going on. But you don't need to play it to understand everything that's going on.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and I would be curious if you ever end up watching it, what you thought it would, because I
Yeah.
think you'd have a blast.
All right. Well, I got a 3-day weekend coming up, so I could probably sneak some of these in. Air, Dungeons and Dragons. You know, let's go to Netflix, but first, before we talk about news, let's do a little reverse order so we can end on the news and talk about the content. I've mentioned it before. Tristan reviewed it a little bit last week, but my fiance and I, in the last 2 weeks, have binged all 2 seasons of Bridgerton and all but the last season of Queen Charlotte. Bridgerton takes place around, I believe, the early 1800s, about this family, essentially the Bridgertons in, um, old fucking England. And every season, I wasn't really sure what it was going in, but every season essentially focuses on a different child in the Bridgerton family and kind of their love story. It's based on like dime store novels about like dime store romance novels. But they, added stuff to it to make it a little more compelling, a little more interesting. Going in, I didn't feel like I'd care about this show. But my fiance and I enjoy it together. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the best show ever. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to win any handies at the end of the year. But for like a, hey, coming home from work, relaxing, chilling, need to throw something on, it's a pretty good show. Chilling on the weekend, you want to look at your phone every once in a while. It's a pretty decent show. It's not going to set the world on fire and be like everyone is going to copy this show in the future. But it's well made. It's interesting. It's got a little heat to it. Like it's a solid like 6.5, 7 out of 10. It's not
Yeah,
going to win any.
I'm a big fan of this one. I love the kind of tone of it, and I've mentioned before, but it kind of feels like Downton Abbey meets Gossip Girl. Do you feel like that's an apt comparison after watching the show? Do you feel like
I
you
can't. I
understand?
can't agree with your statement because I've never seen a single episode of Downton Abbey or Gossip Girl. So
Ah, well, it's a nice blend of those two, you know, and I like the structure too of each season focusing on a different member of the household. It makes it kind of breaks it up from really dragging out plot lines because you feel like they've essentially got to wrap up like that core romance by the end of the season. Something that can be so frustrating about shows like this is that you can't just have them get together right in the first season. They got to kind of make that last, but in this show they can get together in the first season because that's the season, and you're gonna have, of course, like background plots that keep going throughout
Mm,
all of these seasons. But I
yeah,
feel like it gives them a nice pace
yeah,
where you're not they're never dragging the feet at all anytime in the show. I feel like that's something I really
yeah,
appreciate. Every episode feels like it's moving things forward and moving the plot forward and not kind of just like sitting there. Uh, Performances I also think are really fun. They all kind of like you know live on that tone of like that Lifetime movie. They're taking it all very
yeah,
seriously, and it kind of adds to the camp of it, where very ridiculous things are happening, but everyone is taking it like extremely seriously, as if it's the most important thing that could ever happen in the world. And I really, really am liking the show. And you mentioned it's not gonna get handies, Joe, but if we get a third season of Bridgerton this year, I'm gonna be fighting for that handy. Okay, we're gonna have a
mm.
fight at least. I gotta get some love for the Bridgerton in there
I mean, there's a
from the
chance you
handies.
get the right moment. You get the right category. I could see it winning, but I was more thinking like show of the year or anything like performance of the year or something like that. I feel like, but if
How are you feeling about Queen Charlotte comparatively to Bridgerton? Is it
I
better,
think I
worse,
feel like I
different?
like Queen Charlotte more. So there's like obviously if you haven't watched the show, there's you have to. I feel like the way you watch the show is you have to watch Bridgerton season 1, Bridgerton season 2, and then Queen Charlotte because there's things in Queen Charlotte where Queen Charlotte it's mostly her younger, but Queen Charlotte appears throughout season 1 and season 2 of Bridgerton, and there's just storylines and stuff where it shows her in quote unquote present day, as in Bridgerton timeline, but also mostly shows her younger, where I feel like all of those present day story arcs or storylines or that story is just going to be confusing and make no sense. So I feel like you definitely have to watch Bridgerton first. Um, but yeah, I would say overall, I like Queen Charlotte better, and I feel like Bridgerton season 2 is better than Bridgerton season 1. So honestly, it's just getting better every subsequent season is better than the one before it.
I can't wait, Joe. We're gonna get to season three, and you're gonna be saying, "Look, best show of the year. Give it the handy." We're gonna be here giving the praises, Joe. Let's make it last. We gotta get to season three of Bridgerton somehow. I wonder if that's started production. I'm imagining that's also in the halt phase right now, but who
Mm.
knows?
Yeah. Did you have were you have any thoughts? I don't want to spoil it here because we are recommending the show. Any correct assumptions on who Lady Whistledown was?
I eventually did figure it out by the end of or by the point that it was revealed. I kind of knew who it was going to be, but I definitely was along for the ride on some of the like red herrings of, oh, it's definitely this person. I swear it's going to be this person. And then I swear, by the time they got to me, I was kind of onto the game a little bit, but I had a little bit of a gasp. They gagged me a bit. I won't lie.
As soon as they revealed who it was, I'm like, oh, this is obvious, and I feel stupid.
Yes, that was it. That's part of the feeling too. I feel like it's a good twist, and I'm glad they didn't drag that out to like the last episode because that
Oh
would have
yeah,
kind of become
that's.
ridiculous.
I was saying to my fiance like right as they revealed this, I'm like, if this is a thing that lasts the whole show, I'm gonna be sick of it because I'm just at the point where I'm annoyed by this. Where just tell me, and like they literally just revealed it as was saying that.
And it was one of those things where you think if they reveal it, does it take the steam out of it? But I feel like once they revealed it, it almost like added to the
Yeah,
drama in such a interesting way, where all of a sudden you care about that character's flight more than you did before, and you care about her relationships with the characters in a much different way than you did before. So yeah,
yeah,
I can't wait to see season three. I hope
yeah.
it's great.
But yeah, if you haven't watched it, Lady Whistledown is kind of this gossiper in in
A
the
gossip girl, if you will.
gossiper in the area in like this high society group, and basically acts as the narrator of the show. And the Lady Whistledown is voiced by Julie Andrews, so kind of cool.
Yeah, that was my comparison to Gossip Girl because in Gossip Girl
Yeah,
there was also an unknown gossiper who narrates the show that knows everything about the characters. But who is it? Who knows?
yeah, it's Ben Badgley. I haven't even watched the show, and I knew that. And but the main story, the big story, Netflix, no more password sharing. Essentially, they revealed that they will begin charging an extra $7 for users outside of your IP address, and customers with the standard account 15.50 a month can only add one additional user. People with the top tier 4K account can add two. And my question is more like I feel like for the average person it makes sense. Like I understand they're a service that everyone has, but somehow they're losing money. So I don't fault them for what they're doing because it makes sense. And I feel like, okay, you stay in one spot, but like, what about military families? Like, if they have to move, is there a way on their account that they're like, hey, I moved, and yes, I move every 6 months or every year? Or is it basically like, oh yeah, if you're in that situation where you move, you basically have to like deactivate your Netflix account and recreate a Netflix account?
I know in the press release they did say there was some kind of way to adjust for moving, because they're gonna have to reactivate your account because Hulu at some point cracked down on this and they would track it by your IP. So if you log in too many times at a new IP address, they're gonna say, "Is this your home account?
Yeah,
Yes or no?"
yeah,
And
yeah. That's
you'll say
evident for
yes
the.
and kind of switch it over. So I'm assuming
Uh,
Netflix will do like a similar thing like that. But yeah, this is something they've been talking about for so long,
mm,
and now they're actually cracking down and doing it. I think they're gonna be the first of men to do it. I don't think people are gonna be wanting to share passwords for everything for a long time. So I think a lot of these studios are gonna be watching what happens at Netflix here and deciding for their platform too. Like, are we gonna be starting to crack down on this? Because yeah, it's not sustainable if you're just sharing accounts to everyone, and I understand Netflix's mindset, but it's definitely going to hurt, I think, their user base for a second. When you look at how it affected other countries, they definitely had a huge cancellation drop off at
yeah,
first, but then it kind of popped back up again. People eventually were like, you know what, fine, I'll sign up and I'll figure it out, or I'll do the 7.99 for one of my friends or my mom or whatever, and they kind of seem to be going back up again. So I'm wondering if this goes well here, but it was inevitable. That doesn't mean it doesn't suck. I wish there wasn't all these caveats of like, well, if you have this account, you have this many users, and if you have this account, and you have this many, because I feel like that's just another level of confusion that's going to make somebody say, well, you know what, screw it, I don't need Netflix.
yeah. Yeah, like so how does it work like if I'm have Netflix on my phone? Like if I pay for Netflix, right? I have Netflix at my house and I sign in on my phone, but I go to my work and I'm like on my work's Wi-Fi. Is it just going to be like, "Oh, you can't watch Netflix here?"
I
Cuz
think you
that's
have to
kind of
come
dumb.
back to your home IP address within a certain amount of time to essentially re-register your device
Oh,
as being
okay.
part of that
So
home network or
basically,
whatever.
if I watch it at work, or not that I have the time to watch Netflix at my work, but I assume some people do. Like they have Netflix maybe on their if they just do like data entry or something, they watch Netflix on their tablet or their phone at work. But it makes sense that if you're only gone like 8-10 hours, that you'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see how this rolls out because they've announced stuff and then backed out again. They announced stuff and backed out again. So I wonder if any of this stuff will change in the next 48 hours. But as of now, are you going to be doing the $7 or what's your plan,
I
Joe?
don't know because I think my future mother-in-law pays for Netflix and we have it through her, so I don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out too because I also share my password for Netflix with my family, and I feel like we're gonna have to maybe I don't know make a new account and split it or something. I don't know what we'll have to figure it out if we want to keep Netflix because to be honest, this level of a hoop to jump through makes me not sure if I even want to bother because when we do this show, I feel like the platform I'm digging through the most is Netflix because Netflix just does not seem to be dropping a lot of stuff that's in my demographic of enjoying,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of stuff that is not really for me and stuff that I don't really end up being engaged with. And I feel like every time I open up Netflix, I spend an hour going through trying to find something to watch. Then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to swap to HBO or I'm just going to swap to anything else that I at least know what it has and where it's at. So maybe I end up not having Netflix for a while.
Netflix's algorithm, like their UI sucks because it'll be like you'll go and it'll be like recommended for you, and you'll be like, I don't really care for any of this. And then I wish it would allow you to be like, hey, just don't ever recommend. I'm not gonna watch this. I don't want to watch this. I have no desire to watch this. If I search for it, allow it to pop up. But otherwise, never just
Stop
have this.
recommending it to me.
Yeah, stop recommending it to me. And then, but it'll be unrecommended for you. And then you go down to like the next category, like action and adventure movies. And it'll be everything that was recommended to you that fits that category, plus the same movies. And it just feels like no matter what category it says it is, it's just whatever batch of the same 30 things makes the most sense.
Yeah, I don't understand Netflix's layout either. They have so many movies, but it feels like they want you to feel like they have
Mm,
50, because they're just showing me the same stuff. And
yeah.
it's like, if I was going to watch that by now, I promise you I would have watched it. You've been recommending me
Mm,
that movie for 5 years and I have not once hit play on it. Maybe just stop putting it in there. Replace it with something that I might actually click on.
yeah.
It's not working.
Yeah, replace it with something I'm more likely to click on something I've never heard of than you recommending me like The Hangover. Like I know what that is. You don't need to put it in every category, you know.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, it's HBO Max's new app definitely feels like a copy of Netflix, and I wonder why they copied the worst of all of the apps.
Yep.
In terms of like user interface.
Yep. All right. Getting close to the end. That pretty much covers all of the streaming services. Tristan, we have one final topic, really, and I don't know how we're going to pick, and that is our MVP of the week. Because it kind of just seemed like we were negative and we're like, this app sucks, this app sucks, this app sucks. So, do you have any thoughts on picking our MVP this week?
I'm conflicted here, Joe, because I feel like next week there's going to be a battle for MVPs, right? I'm going to be here trying to argue Barry on one side of my shoulder. I'm going to have Succession on the other side of my shoulder. I'm going to be like, who am I fighting for right now? I'm almost tempted to try and give one of those the win a week early, for maybe a good setup episode. So I've debated on Succession. Uh, the Culkin brother of Succession, he
Kieran
gave an
Culkin.
all-time level of performance this week at a funeral episode for a major character in Succession, and you kind of like finally get that character to like break and open, and you saw something in that performance that you had been like seeing in just barely behind his eyes for this entirety of the series, and now it finally like breaking in to the humanity of the character. So for me, I'm giving a win here to not to Succession, but I'm going to go to the cast member of Succession
Kieran
who I
Culkin.
can't. Yeah, because I'm probably next week going to be going for somebody else or someone. I don't know. Next week's going to be a hard MVP. This week it felt like we were all news and a lot of negative stuff. So I'm going to pick out someone who had a great performance this week and end up getting a little bit overlooked as we go into the finale and the awards seasons and stuff like that. I hope that he can be someone. Kieran Culkin can be someone who still is in that conversation while he's fighting, Brian Cox and some of the all-time incredible performances that are in the show.
All right, so our MVP for the week of May 24th is Kieran Culkin on Succession. So congrats to him, Kieran Culkin, our MVP of the week, really our MVP of the last 2 weeks. Great for him. And I always end this thing with a question for Tristan, and I just realized what my question will be. So we have the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles coming to Disney Plus, a show I've wanted to watch for a long time, but it's really been hard to find streaming anywhere. And we also have a Home Improvement show haven't watched in a long time. I've been looking for on streaming for a while, coming to Disney Plus as well. So Tristan, is there a show that's maybe from your past that you would like to see again uh, on streaming service somewhere?
Look, the thing is that once Disney Plus dropped, a lot of my all-time classics kind of popped up on there, But I would love this, Feel the Future. I watched that a lot when I was a kid. I wonder if that's out there anywhere. I'm sure it is somewhere. That's we're in the streaming era where if I type something in, it's gonna show up. It's gonna just show up on some hole in the wall thing, maybe somewhere. But yeah, I'm actually at a loss for that joke because a lot of my childhood TV shows have finally been delivered to me. You know what I really appreciated the Blu-ray release this year, the classic Fleischer cartoons, Superman cartoons. Really great HD streaming release for those. I would love to get like a high quality, top of the line Blu-ray streaming release for those cartoons because that's one that I watched a lot as a kid. It's around. Joe just broke his copy, unfortunately, but I would love to be able to watch some great high quality copies of those cartoons that Joe is holding right in his hands right now. He's holding a classic copy of the Fletcher cartoons. It was just this year a 4K remaster that I would love to see that released on HBO Max somewhere or whatever platform they want to put it on.
All right, so I looked it up while you were talking. Phil of the Future is on Disney Plus, but the Disney Channel original show that isn't on Disney Plus that I would like is The Jersey, a show about a group of high school kids where one of them finds their grandfather's jersey and putting it on lets them turn into whatever big athlete of that episode. It was right around the time where Disney bought ESPN, and so it was a lot of Disney Channel, ESPN crossover, a lot of big time athletes of the time. Curious why it's not on Disney Plus. I wonder if it's just because they think, well, it was a show marketed at kids, and now kids today have no idea who any of these athletes are because they've all been retired for 20 years. Maybe, athletes that were on the show have had legal troubles or personal problems that they just don't want to have to worry. Do we not air this episode? Do we not put this episode on? Do we put a kind of a warning label before this episode? And we're like, we'll just not even put the show on Disney Plus at all. But yeah, that's
Interesting.
my pick is the Jersey.
I would love to see something like Tales of the Crypt, Tales from the Crypt. I watched that a lot when I was a kid. I don't know if that's streaming anywhere. Some of those late night horror shows like Svengoolie, I watched that. I wonder if you can rewatch some old Svengoolie. But yeah, that'll be one I would check out for sure. Tales from the Crypt.
All right, yeah, and if anyone doesn't know, it's an app I use a lot as far as like where streaming, and that is justwatch.com, where you can type in like any movie or any show, and it'll show you where it's streaming. And Tales from the Crypt not streaming anywhere, so
Dang.
yeah.
That is what.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
One day, someone's got to pick that up.
And Spinner58 said the Jersey was a good show. It was a good show, and it needs to be on Disney Plus. And also, I was going to
Whose jersey would you bring in if there was like a reboot? Who
Oh,
would
if
you
you're
want to have?
like, if I mean, pretty much any like top athletes, like LeBron James make an appearance, Steph Curry, Patrick Mahomes, like pretty much all the top athletes were on that show. Like around the time of the Olympics, they had Olympians on, and then they had like one of the saddest episodes. So basically, like it's his grandfather's like high school football jersey that he puts on, and there's one where basically his grandfather was supposed to be like this top quarterback, but then he's supposed to go to college and play quarterback at college, and potentially could have went to the NFL or something. But there was a big thunderstorm in a game, and he slipped and injured himself and wasn't able to go to college. Um, and so he puts on the jersey because when you basically look at their picture or look at a video of something, and that's how you turn into that person, or that's how they turn into you or whatever. Well, he put on his jersey looking at an old picture of his grandpa and went back in time and became his grandpa and finished out the game, didn't get hurt. But what he didn't know is his grandpa actually never got hurt. He met his grandmother under the bleachers, and that's when they like fell in love after the game, and he pretended that he got hurt so he wouldn't like leave her and go away from college. And he was never, and the main character was like never born, and it was kind of like It's a Wonderful Life situation where he sees like what his life and like how his parents turn out if and how like his friends turn out if him and his dad, I guess, never existed, and he has to go back again and do it as his grandpa did. And
Kiss his
pretend
mom.
kisses. Well, I don't know if he kisses. I think he like takes the jersey off, kind of like right before. It's been
Oh,
like 15 years since I watched the episode, but I think he like takes the jersey off like right before kind of that situation happens.
I'll definitely be watching that show when it comes down streaming.
Well, it's Disney Plus has been around for 4 years, and the jersey's nowhere to be found. So I think I've when Disney Plus was announced, I was like, yes, I get to rewatch the jersey, but it didn't come out, and I binge watched So Weird. But we've gone on this topic long enough. Put the jersey on Disney Plus. That's my new campaign. I'm gonna end every episode with that. Put the jersey on Disney Plus. And without further ado, unless Tristan, you got anything else?
Nothing else. Just
Goodbye.
put the jersey in Disney Plus.